Governor's Workforce Council, a third quarterly meeting of this year. Appreciate everyone taking the time to be with us. We have, as we usually do, a pretty information-rich agenda. As always, we're going to kick off the meeting with Kelly, and she's going to lead us through some of the more standard business items before we get into some of the content. Kelly's going to provide some workforce updates, including WIOA and some state workforce development legislation. And we're also excited. Today, we've got Jack Porter, who's the program director from Workforce Development and Economic Policy for the NGA. That's the National Governors Association. Kelly and I are fortunate to work with Jack throughout the year, and so we're grateful for his participation. Following Jack, we have a trio of experts from our own Department of Education that's going to inform us of a lot of progress that they have made on industry-recognized credentials. You'll be hearing from Karen Amaker, the Director of Workforce Development and Career Readiness, Kylie Freeman, Perkins and Career Readiness, and we also got Kate Atkins from an education consultant that'll be with us as well. And finally, we're going to have a presentation from Josh Nathan, the Director, Impact Investments at Social Finance, which is a non-for-profit dedicated to mobilizing financial capital to drive social progress. So we're grateful that they're going to be with us today. So looking forward to today's agenda. And Kelly, is the governor with us at this moment?
I think he's planning on being here about 10 after. So I think we're going to do roll call first, and then
Perfect.
we'll jump on as soon as the governor gets here.
Terrific. So let's try to work through roll call in an efficient way so we're not doing it when the governor joins.
Absolutely. So Laura's going to do roll call for us. So she's going to put up the member list, and you're going to be called in the order that you appear on the screen here. So you can just put Betty, and she's calling your name for your response. Thank you.
All right, folks. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Nodding the heads. All right. We're going to try to make this as quick as possible, I promise you, but please bear with me. This is the currently appointed board membership you see in front of you. So I'm just going to go ahead through. If you are a designee, please also state your name as a designee for the record per, the state. Alice Pritchard.
Here.
Amy Porter.
Here.
Anthony Medici. Sorry, I'm getting terrible feedback. So sorry, folks. I don't hear Anthony Medici or Carol Kennedy, but George Anderson, is that you causing all that trouble over there? I can see him. He's shaking his head yes.
I'm here.
Thank you, George. Charlene Russell Tucker or designee Keith Norton?
Here, Laura.
Thank you, Keith. Christy Pentima?
Here, I'm Jenna Grasso here as his designee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Bigelow.
Paul Schoenfeld for Cindy Bigelow.
Oh, Dan O'Keefe. Dante Bartolomeo.
Here.
Thank you, Dante. Ed Hawthorne.
Here.
Thank you, Ed. Erica Smith. Greg Ugaldi.
Here.
Thank you, Greg. Heron Gaston.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jay Williams. Jeffrey Flax. John Murphy.
Here.
Thank you, John. Joe Gianni. Kathy Szilard or her designee. I think we were expecting a designee today. Kelly Valeries.
Present.
Carrie Hona.
Here.
Carrie. Letitia Colon. Maggie Hulse or Jack. Here. Thank you, Maggie. Mark Argosh. Abby Sanazaro for Marty Guay.
Here.
Thank you, Abby. Matthew O'Donnell.
Here.
Thank you, Matthew. Maury McInnes or her designee. Melissa Turner.
Here.
Thank you, Melissa.
And Laura, I'm sorry, did not hit unmute unfast enough. Rich Jacob from Maury McInnes.
Hi, Rich. Thank you so much. Michelle James.
Here.
Michelle. Molly Kellogg. Manette Ferguson. Nitin Kumar.
Present.
Thank you, Nitin. Paul Costello.
Here.
Paul, Paul Pernaruski or Nick Yermo?
Nick Guillermo for Mayor Panerski.
Nick. Peter Nystrom. Radenka Merrick or Gladys Crescent? Or designee?
Here.
Thank you, Gladys. Ray Penalt.
Here.
Hi, Ray. Rebecca Rose.
Here.
Rebecca. Rohan Freeman. Ryan Drazowitz. Sal Menzo. I saw him. Shane Eddy, Amanda Billiot for Shane Eddy.
I'm here, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Sean Coyne. Shay Hugh Muhammad.
Here.
Shay Hugh. Shelley Davis.
Here.
Shelley.
Laura,
Steve Sullivan.
Laura,
Yeah.
sorry, this is Sal. I'm here.
Hi, Sal. Thank you. Steve Sullivan or his designee.
Jonathan Harris for Steve Sullivan.
Thank you, Jonathan. John Maduco for Terrence Chang. Tiana Ocasio. Tony Walker.
Present. Sorry. Tiano Casio present.
Thank you, Tiana. Tony. See Tony here. Wes Alexander. All right, folks, we did hit the magic number of a quorum today. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with the is the governor here yet, Kelly?
Hey, Laura, does Sal Mancino here in case you missed my name?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes, are there others that I missed that are from this list, right? There are some appointments still in progress that if your name's not on here, it's because the appointment may not be complete yet. So is there anyone from that immediately represents this list or their designee?
Laura, it's Mark Argosh. I was just a
Ah,
little bit late, but I
thank
have
you. Beautiful. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, and I see the governor is here. So thank you so much, Governor, for joining us. And we will give the floor to you.
No. Stop sharing.
He may be distracted for a moment here. Okay, while we're waiting for him to jump on, we can do a quick vote of the meeting minutes.
Yep. So let me go ahead and screen share just so you all can have that. Share. So my screen should be sharing. We went ahead and conducted the roll call. So I will need to call a motion to vote on the minutes from
Motion to approve the minutes is submitted.
Thank you, Greg. May I have a second?
Second, Rebecca Rose.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Any discussion on the minutes or items for the record? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Would anyone like to abstain?
Steve Sullivan, Jonathan Harris for Steve Sullivan as he was not present.
All right. Would anyone else like to abstain? Okay. Would anyone like to vote nay? Okay. Hearing none, motion carries. I believe we're trying to get a hold of the governor, so let's give him another minute, Kelly. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I think we.
Hey, Kelly.
There he is. Hi, Governor. How are you today?
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining us. We have 146 folks on the line waiting for hear your great comments for today.
You want to just kick things off for a second, Kelly?
Sure, I'm happy to. Let's jump right into some of the updates for this month. Did want to let everyone know that we had an executive board vote for WIOA, and I can go through that information. Governor, I'm not sure if you want to get into the weeds on that level of
No,
information.
I'll jump in. Hey, I see
Okay.
Jonathan Harris there. How you doing, my friend? Ed Hawthorne, how are you? Get together with Kirti Patel. Have you met Kirti? Is he there? He's our new manufacturing czar. I love this guy because he represents the next generation of manufacturing. You know, it comes out of lithography and medical devices and all the places we're trying to take manufacturing. I'll just say briefly, we're in relatively good shape compared to our peers when it comes to employment, but the employment picture is softening a little bit. And we got to pay special attention to that. You know, thanks to a lot of you, our unemployment rate is still below the national average. That's a good thing. I love what Kelly and Ryan are doing in terms of the number of people able to train in advanced manufacturing and certainly in healthcare and in infrastructure and training. I think Ed Hawthorne is there. You know, we're a lot of on and off coming from the Trump administration, but in terms of infrastructure, they continued honoring their commitments. And that's a really big deal because you don't want to stop halfway through Gold Star Bridge. That would not have been good. They did stop halfway through or 80% of the way through wind power at Revolution Wind. We can talk about that. I'll just say one other thing, pull back from workforce necessarily in terms of, I was just at Tungus Community College, and we're doing everything we can, Marty Guay and company, to make sure our education system and our community colleges are tied closely to what each and every one of you need, and everything that you know, Kelly and Ryan are trying to do, and we're coordinated. And as you maybe know, our community college enrollment and CSU in general, we're diminishing in terms of the number of students. A lot of reasons for that. Some people said demographics. Some people, you know, pointed to COVID. Some people said a really hot job market. So many people just were jumping right into the job market. Today, that's turning around, and our number of folks we have has gone up quite a bit. And, you know, 5% over the last year in our community colleges and in our CSU. And I think Alice Pritchard's there. Talking about C-Tech, that's tougher to get into than Yale these days. So that's something we can learn from as well. As I was there with the students from Tungus community, we talked about some of the innovations we've tried to do that help the quality of our workforce and quality of our education, because that is still the strongest calling card I have. And whenever every time we talk to a business person, they're talking about Connecticut, they're looking at us much more favorably. They like where we are on pensions and balanced budget, but they really like the quality of our workforce and the quality of our education, K through 12 and college. So we just talked to Tungus a little bit about how we're rethinking education and ways that you can, you know, weigh in on this and be very helpful. One, some question of how long education ought to go, but also when should it start? And there's a certain sense that I have, also talking to a lot of business leaders and also talking to a lot of teachers, perhaps education starts too late, say kindergarten. So as you probably know, we made a $300 million down payment on universal early childhood education. And that's going to pay dividends for years to come. It's an endowment, so it doesn't go up or down depending on the economy. And that's going to be infant and toddlers right through pre-K. And I think for a lot of employers, that makes a big difference. It means, you know, young moms, young dads can get back to work a little quicker. I think when it comes to affordability, it's enormous that a young family could be saving them $10,000 or $20,000 a year. You know, K through 12, I love the internship programs, and I really recommend that again a lot to each and every one of you in the private sector and not-for-profits and state government. We do a lot here in state government, just to give young people a little more real-world insight into why they're studying what they are at school and how it might be relevant to what they want to do later. And to the employers, of course, earlier you get these folks, more likely you are to keep them. I know Dante's been very active in the apprenticeship program, and I love expanding that in any way I can. So you get young people in, college, maybe get them involved, let them see for a summer what it is. Let them see what advanced manufacturing is, so they get an updated version of what that ought to be. And they're much more likely to keep them in the state of Connecticut and to help them stay with your company. We talked about some of the changes we're making. Dual enrollment is a big change we're doing. So to get those high school students on a track at Tungus Community College or CSU system, the reason we like that is to give kids a taste of what college is going to be. And they're picking up credits. So maybe you can graduate community college in less than 2 years. So you can graduate from CCSU in less than 4 years. Saves them a lot of money and helps you go. For those students who are applying to college, college is not for everybody. If one thing Workforce Council has done with certificate programs and such is how, a lot of people can get onto a, good paying job track, not necessary to have all the credentials that perhaps college is. For those of you who are looking at college, we now have automatic enrollment for anybody with, I think it's the 3.5 average and above. No application fees. We've quadrupled the number of folks on scholarship. That's one of the reasons we have many more students that are, for example, our CSU system than we did before. I'll leave it at there. Take any questions you want, except to say my strong advice to all the employers there is go to our high schools, visit our community colleges, go to the CSU system, give these guys a taste of what your real world is like, get them inspired to think where they want to be in Connecticut going forward. And if you get them interested early, they'll stay.
Thank you so much, Governor, for those comments. And, we completely support work-based learning opportunities and having our businesses participate with our students often and early. We know that our students typically make a lot of decisions about what they want to be when they get older, when they're in middle school. So ensuring that they have a lot of exposure to the world around them as young as middle school so that they can take advantage of those dual and concurrent enrollment opportunities and earn industry recognized credentials and college credit while they're in high school. So important for our workforce, and our business community is really vital to ensuring that we provide these opportunities for our young folks. So we're really looking forward to stepping up with that. We were able to bring on a fellow onto the Office of Workforce Strategy this year, and his focus is on work-based learning. So he's just getting started. He's digging in with the CTEC schools and working with Alice and her team on how we can get more students enrolled in work-based learning experiences, especially in some of our cities like Hartford and Bridgeport and Waterbury, New Haven, who those students aren't quite getting as many opportunities as maybe some of the other regions in the state. So we're going to figure out why. And we're going to be out there giving all of you a call in the near future, hoping to get more support on how we can get these students into your organizations and learn more about the important work that you do every day.
Hey, thanks to each and every one of you for staying involved. We need you more than ever. And make sure Kirti Patel has a chance to introduce himself. He's an important piece of what we do going forward. Thanks, Kelly. Great to see you all.
Great. Thanks to see you too, Governor. And Kirti, would love to have you jump up on screen and say hello to our workforce community. We are fortunate to have over 150 people on the call today here.
Well, thank you very much. My first Workers' Council meeting. I really appreciate meeting all of you, those who I can see faces of, as well as the names. I'm sure we'll capture those in the minutes. So I'll familiarize myself with that. But as you may have already read the announcement, what I'm passionate about is for the entirety of my professional career is advanced manufacturing, product development, product engineering. And that's what I grew up in, and that's what my education focused, as well as I mentioned, the professional career, working career. So I'm extremely excited to be given this opportunity to serve the state of Connecticut. And Kelly, we've talked during the GK and Aerospace meeting, and that's exactly where we need to be in the context of advanced workforce upskilling, as well as ensuring, as the governor mentioned, ensuring that our funnel, we're focusing on our funnel to keep up with the projected growth in the state of Connecticut. As the governor also mentioned, one of the things I'm really passionate about is the aspect of technologies and how we're applying those technologies into the manufacturing area. Whether it be in the defense sector, whether it be in semiconductor sector, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, so on and so forth. There's a lot of opportunity for us as the state of Connecticut. We all know that one of the things where we differentiate ourselves is in the advanced quality of the workforce, right? So that's where basically our differentiation is. And I think these technologies work in our favor as long as we are taking proactive steps to adopt them and apply them into our manufacturing sector. So that's our job, working together with everybody, listening to all of you. You know more than I do. So that's my job, is to listen and learn from all of you and work collaboratively to move things forward and onwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much for jumping on with us. One other just great outcome of the Manufacturing Innovation Fund meeting the day before yesterday is a $4.6 million investment in robotics. And these are supporting students kindergarten through high school in a vast array of robotics opportunities that includes engineering and coding. So making sure that we are preparing our students young and often, as I said before, and it's great to partner with the MIF to bring those kinds of programs to life.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to meeting all of you in person as I ramp up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, well, we're going to jump into just a little bit of business that we have to take care of, and then we'll do some additional updates on some of the work that's been happening at OWS. So as I started to mention, we did have an executive committee vote on our WIOA allocations. I'm also going to give you an update on our bond funding and an update on Career Connect. So if you go to the next slide, Laura, as you all are very aware that one of the core responsibilities of the Governor's Workforce Council is to approve the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding for the year. And that usually gets released sometime in an April-ish timeframe. And then it takes a bit of time to go through the budget and the formulas and the allocations to get to the allocations to be voted on. And we needed to have a special session in between our last two meetings in order to get this done. So I just wanted to share the outcomes of that and make sure that you all have that information. So if we can go to the next slide. So we break out the budget into three categories. The first one is the workforce board allocations. And these are driven by pre-approved formulas. As the money comes into Connecticut, there's a formula that is somewhat complicated that takes into consideration unemployment rate and economic indicators in our 5 workforce regions of the state and divvies out that money, and you'll see what that looks like shortly. Our rapid response dollars are 25% or up to 25% of the dislocated worker funding that comes in. And then finally is the governor's reserve, which is utilized for statewide activities and is up to 15% of the fund to support operations and activities between DOL, OWS, and the workforce boards. So the next slide, please. Again, here's the 3 different line items and how they're broken up. This year, our total was just under $30 million. And how they are broken up, if you go to the next slide, we'll see a little bit more detail about the 5 regions. The money comes in, it's broken up between adult, dislocated worker, and youth. And then you can see the change year over year. So this year, our funding from the federal government was $1.9 million less than the year before. There's fundings, again, are based on formula funds, and there's never there's few consistencies from year to year. Usually this fluctuates quite a bit from year to year, and you'll be able to see how that affects the 5 regions. There's also a hold harmless, so that if a region drops below, I believe it's 10% of their allocations from the previous year, we use some funding from the governor's reserves to fill in some of that, so they don't take such a significant loss. But you can see some of them, like the Hartford region, was affected greatly this year by almost $1 million. So if you go to the next slide. This is just our rapid response allocation from year to year. These are funds that go to organizations that are having massive layoffs and report to the Department of Labor through a WARN notice. And these funds are utilized to support those folks who are losing their jobs to find reemployment. Next slide is the governor's reserve dollars, and you'll see that these funds support many different activities that are necessarily to support WIOA. And again, this year there was a delta of almost $400,000. And the next slide. Okay, so just in closing up for WIOA, we approved the budget as it was shown to you all today. And we look forward to the next budget cycle year, which will be coming up next spring and into next summer. I also wanted to give you a really exciting update on our bond dollars. So for those of you who've been around the council for a while, you'll remember about 4 years ago, we were authorized $40 million of bond funding that went to OWS, but was allocated to the Department of Economic and Community Development on behalf of OWS. And this was instituted before OWS became an independent state agency. So those funds lived at DECD. We had originally a $5 million allocation of those funds, and we spent those dollars on the Tech Talent Accelerator 3.0. Currently, that contract is almost finalized and will allocate $2.6 million to upgrading and enhancing curriculum within our higher education institutions, really focusing on artificial intelligence and AI, making sure that we're preparing our next generation of students to be proficient with AI technologies. And these funds also go down to CT State as well. We have an artificial intelligence education project that we're working on with Ed Advance, and this will be to bring education on AI at a basic level to communities at no cost around the state of Connecticut. This is at early stages of being implemented, so we're very excited about that work. We also have an adult education contextualized remediation program that is being led by Capital Workforce Partners in partnership with the Northwestern Regional Workforce Board. And they're really working with adults who either have a GED or do not have a GED or a high school diploma and are still struggling with some basic math, reading, and comprehension skills. And we're putting them through job training programs that enhance not only those basic skills, but provides it in the context of which they're learning a trade. So such as manufacturing utilizes a lot of math. So students will be learning math as it relates to manufacturing. So converting decimal points to percentages and things along those lines. We just completed two studies, well, a study and a design. The transportation study, you received an update on that at our last GWC meeting, and we're excited to be thinking about how we can pilot program and outcome from that study. And we also completed the career accelerator design. We were legislatively required to do this work. We were very excited to do this work. It was on our agenda. And we now are looking to having an RFP process for a fund manager. And the accelerator you'll learn a little bit more about this afternoon. And we're really excited to have our partners from social finance to share more information with you about that. We also received $5 million to fund the Career Accelerator Fund in this last bond meeting, and again, working on an RFP for that. And what we did with the remaining $30 million is we were able to move those funds under OWS as they were originally intended to, as we are now an independent agency. And we received 10 million of those approved in the August bond meeting. And we're really excited to be putting together some priorities that will fully be supporting the workforce strategy. So if we can move into the next slide. And these would be the funding priorities with that $10 million. So as you remember from the updated strategy, our three objectives are to drive growth, build skills, and expand access. And so with regards to things like driving growth is how do we support our regional sector partnerships and their ability to scale workforce programs that are meaningful to them and build all of your workforce pipelines there. With regarding building skills, how can we support incumbent worker training and continue to support folks in short-term job training programs? With regards to expanding access, how can we do things like fund a transportation fund that would provide opportunities for folks to pay for potentially a zero interest car payment or a opportunity to repair a car or maybe pay back taxes so that they can register a car to get to work, or to be able to provide funding for enhanced supportive services for folks who are potentially in, say, an incumbent worker training program and need additional funding for daycare in the evening, per se. So those are some of the priorities with the fund, and we're looking forward to sharing more with you all as we put plans together and build out an advisory board. And the next slide, please.
Kelly, if I could just pause for just one moment. And you have a question?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, I can't see anybody's hand, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Laura. And this is wonderful to see Kelly progress and the way you articulated and kind of broken it down in terms of how to increase AI and tech skills. I was just curious, are we looking at through this process, adding something in the curriculum of middle school or high school students, or this stays outside the curriculum for their education?
I'm glad that you brought that up. We work very closely with our state agency partners, and the State Department of Education is leading a lot of great work on dual and concurrent enrollment. And that's bringing programming into high schools. And you'll hear a little bit more from the State Department of Ed team shortly here. And we also are very supportive of bringing in exposure to students in middle school and even as low as elementary school. So we partner with like Electric Boat, who is doing amazing work in bringing curriculum all the way down to kindergarten with coloring books around submarine building and learning to weld with Cheese Whiz and crackers.
Right.
So We have very limited funding, so we have to sprinkle it as best as we can, but we are very supportive of work that other agencies are doing and partner with them and help build capacity there. So like the robotics program that I shared, that the Manufacturing Innovation Fund just approved, that work is being led by Ready CT. So again, we are doing everything we can to be really supportive of the entire pipeline.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question. It's a great one. Okay. Just a short update on some of our programming. So Career Connect is in the last programmatic year. We have until June of next year to complete programs. We are very excited that we have exceeded our goals of the number of folks being trained. Our goal was 5,600, and we are now at 6,000, almost 800. These are numbers as of August 30th. So July 30th, excuse me, new numbers. We have exceeded our goal of the number of people who have completed the program and the number of people that are currently employed. You'll see that employment number will continue to go up. That number of people employed does not reflect the people that are still in training programs and haven't completed yet. So they will be adding to that employment number. And that number is very static by the day. So someone might have completed their job training program, say on July 20th, and on July 30th, they're not employed yet, but will be in the future. So we're very happy with the outcomes of these programs. And we understand there's a lot of lessons learned that have contributed to their success, and a lot of amazing partners that have contributed to the success, especially the 19 grantees that are doing really exceptional work out there. So the next slide, please, is our Good Jobs Challenge cumulative metrics. One thing about Good Jobs Challenge that we're really excited about, the level of participation and commitment of the 14 regional sector partnerships. We were able to add a partnership this year in architecture, construction, and engineering, led by, it's a statewide RSP. Most of the others are regional. This one is statewide because we have a lot of really large contractors and architecture firms that are working statewide, and it just made sense to be statewide. So we'll share lots of stories of great outcomes that are happening with the regional sector partnerships. EDA has chosen job creation or job training and job placement as a single metrics for the success of regional sector partnerships, although we know there's many others besides this one metric, but we are moving along in establishing and meeting those goals. You'll see it took a little bit of time to get these programs up and running, and once we did kind of take off in earlier this year. You see the growth happening. And so we're really looking forward to continuing to get to those numbers and the impact over the next year. And the next slide is just one example of very many of successful outcomes of our regional sector partnerships. So the NRWIB, working with the Northwest Connecticut Manufacturing Regional Sector Partnership, created a job training program in electroplating. And there has not been any programs nationally on electroplating. So this is typically something you would learn by being employed in a company that does this and on-the-job training. We got a group of professionals that came together, set together a curriculum. They brought the curriculum to the National Advanced Manufacturing Association, NAM, and received a credential for that, or a NIMS credential for the curriculum they put together. And they are now able to sell that curriculum to other institutions and use that fund to fund their curriculum implementation and programming in that region. And they also received funding from the city of Waterbury and DECD to pay for some of the state-of-the-art facilities and equipment to be put in there to do the job training program. So we're very excited about the outcomes of all of the regional sector partnerships, and didn't have time to share them all with you today. But in January, we have our 4th annual convening, and we'll be sending out information and invite all of you to join us for a really robust day of regional sector partnerships. And I think that concludes my comments and updates today. At this time, I would love to introduce Jack Porter from the National Governors Association. Thank you, Jack, for joining us today.
Absolutely, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. If we could just go ahead, maybe go to the next slide. Today, I'll just maybe offer a brief overview of a few key federal policy changes that might be of particular importance to governors' workforce development policy, or governors' workforce development boards, and state workforce development policymakers more broadly. But first, happy to do a quick intro of us. We can go to the next slide. NGA was founded in 1908. That photo you see there on the left is NGA's first meeting when President Teddy Roosevelt convened the nation's governors to the White House. And still today, NGA is the bipartisan membership organization representing our nation's governors across all 55 states, commonwealths, and territories. We can go to the next slide. Within NGA, I sit within our Center for Best Practices, which is our state policy team. And we have the 10 different program areas that you can see here, all helping our members achieve their policy agendas across health, education, infrastructure, and a handful more. I lead our workforce development and economic policy program and work day to day with governors' appointees who carry out their governor's workforce development policy agenda. So that's with policy advisors housed in the office of the governor, cabinet officials, and governor's workforce development board leaders as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the bulk of the presentation here. Okay, perfect. So the first item I'll touch on is President Trump's Workforce and Apprenticeship Executive Order. This was issued in April of this year. The EO itself is pretty short and sweet, I will say. I think the big picture takeaway from this one is that, in this second Trump administration, the president and his team have seemed to embrace the registered apprenticeship model. As you probably know, in the first Trump administration, they took a crack at making significant regulatory changes to stand up a new model, the industry recognized apprenticeship model known as IRAPs. But I think by directing the administration's resources to register 1 million new apprentices, which I think is a very ambitious goal, I take it that this executive order to perhaps be the last nail in the coffin of what was the IRAP approach. And so I think that might benefit states and territories from a continuity perspective when they go about developing and scaling apprenticeship programs, which I know is a big priority in Connecticut. You can go to our next slide. Okay, so the second item here is the joint report issued by the Departments of Commerce, Labor, and Education. This report was issued last month, actually while Kelly, Ryan, and I were together for our Workforce Development Policy Institute in Montana. Seems like a lifetime ago. But this report derives from the same executive order that we just reviewed, actually. That EO called on these agencies, the Departments of Labor, Education, and Commerce, to publish recommendations for the country's workforce development strategy. Candidly, I don't think there's anything in this report that's particularly surprising. You'll see these 5 pillars listed here on the slide that make up a bulk of the report. I might put my emphasis, my focus particularly on the third pillar there. And that's what the report refers to as integrated systems. I think it's no secret that the administration's agenda includes consolidating programs and merging federal offices and agencies. And so included in the report are statements that the administration will work with Congress to ensure that the U.S. Department of Labor lead all administration of all workforce development programs. That includes WIOA's Title II and Perkins 5, which, as I'm sure you know, have been historically housed within the Department of Education. It also references the president's Make America Skilled Again, or MASSA proposal. This proposal would consolidate 11 workforce programs, eliminate a few programs such as Job Corps, and offer states a block grant for workforce development. It would also offer states more authority to reset workforce development governance structures accordingly. I want to say to be sure that all this would require an act of Congress. And since this Congress has already undertaken a reconciliation process, this would require 60 votes in the Senate. It is very hard to imagine, at least from my perspective, that there are several Democratic votes for this proposal in the US Senate, but I am certainly not in the prediction business anymore. I should say too, and I don't think that I'm, breaking news or speaking out of turn. I think the administration would say this as well. They're not shy about testing their executive authority to achieve their policy goals, and I think that that applies to this vision for workforce development. We can go to our last slide. Okay, so I think certainly saving the most relevant and timely for last here, I think. I mentioned Congress's reconciliation package before, and that predominantly featured changes to the tax code, but it also included some meaningful policy changes, including what we're referring to as Workforce Pell. Just to lay the groundwork here, the Pell Grant, our country's cornerstone program for college and post-secondary education affordability, used to cover programs that were 15 weeks and longer. That changed in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBA as we are calling it. Pell Grants can now support programs that are as short as 8 weeks. So I think this will have a significant impact for this group because the federal statute includes a codified role for governors' workforce development boards in implementation of Workforce Pell. The statute requires that governors consult with workforce development boards when determining standards for programs that will be newly eligible for support from the Pell Grant as a result of this policy change. There are key considerations that state boards will have to make in admitting these programs for eligibility. I think the good news is that there are a lot of similarities between these considerations that you see here and the ones that you already make for training providers that are admitted to WIOA's training provider list. So the variables you see here around high skill, high wage, in demand, etc., those are all WIOA terms. And so in that way, I think should make for a scenario, a planning process where you're not having to completely reinvent the wheel. But I will say I think this is also an opportunity to offer an extra layer of scrutiny and to ensure that workforce training programs in Connecticut are of high quality. And maybe doing that, in part by engaging the business community and strengthening the connection between their needs and program offerings, by collaborating with higher education institutions and the community colleges like the ones that the governor mentioned, etc. In closing, I'll just say that we at NGA are thinking through how we can be most helpful to our members in implementing Workforce Pell. So as you begin this work on an incredibly tight timeline, as you can see here with the statute going into effect as of July 2026, please feel free to provide us with input. We hope to be live with a curriculum for our members on this very soon. With that, I will pause there and take any questions you may have.
Thanks so much, Jack. There is a question in the chat regarding Pell for credit. So the question is a new Pell eligibility, is it for credit only or not?
Must offer academic credit, must be an accredited institution. There are all sorts of kind of eligibility parameters that I can send along and follow up, Kelly, if that sounds good.
That sounds great. Thank you. And just for everyone on the call, there's a lot of discussion, starting to bubble up in Connecticut around Pell eligibility. We are required as a state to put in some of our parameters of what will be eligible for Pell and what will not be eligible for Pell. We're having conversations with our education partners, and we'll be pulling together a larger work group that will be working on Pell in the very near future. So there's an exciting amount of opportunity here to bring Pell and to workforce and shorter training programs that we know are of value. But there's an incredible amount of work, as you know, Jack, to pull it all together. So we're going to definitely be looking to the NGA to help us provide guidance. There's also some moving parts that are still happening on the federal level. So we can start this work, but there is additional guidance that will be coming down. And as we know, it might change the direction a little bit if we start going too far down one way without having all of the information that we need up front.
Absolutely. And perhaps that's a key part that I failed to mention here is the rulemaking process coming down from the Department of Education in the coming months, in the coming weeks. Perhaps a great opportunity for Connecticut to kind of provide input to our federal colleagues on what would make for the most flexibility in carrying out this new requirement too.
Great. Thank you. We have another question in the chat. Could we make certificate programs worth 1 credit and that would comply?
Interesting question. I believe so. But worth 1 credit. I will have to follow up on that.
And Bill, that is an interesting question. There is a minimum number of contact hours for to be given or issued credit. So and the short-term Pell is up to 8 weeks, so that would not fulfill the requirements for a 3-credit program. So we'll definitely be looking at how many credits will be assigned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciated you joining us today.
Thanks so much, Kelly and Ryan, for having me. Talk soon.
Very welcome. Okay, next up, I'm happy to introduce Keith Norton from the State Department of Education. Keith, thank you for joining us today. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's great to be here this afternoon. I'd like to start by welcoming my commissioner, Charlene Russell Tucker. I'm thrilled she was able to join us for this great presentation on industry-recognized credentials today. This initiative is part of the 23-28 State Board of Education 5-year plan. And one of their important goals was to create multiple career pathways through coordinated and rigorous programs. A key indicator of that goal is to increase the number of students earning industry-recognized credentials. This, I'm pleased to say, this initiative of the CSDE was started by our own employees, but is a result of multi-agency partnerships with several other agencies across state government. This is the first ever CSDE industry recognized credential registry. The intent is to support both K-12 and adult learner students, and it really illustrates the importance of partnering with business and industry. And with that, I'd like to present to you Karen Amaker, who will lead off this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Keith. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that Katie Atkinson, who is our colleague and a great contributor to this work, is unable to join us today. She was double booked, and so she is helping to run some of our NASEP work with the NASEP folks and some of the folks, the IHEs who are seeking national accreditation. So Katie is here in thought. So next slide, please. So you'll see that we have not yet updated our new PowerPoint presentation with the new logo, but that is forthcoming. So I wanted to make sure that you know that there is something new and exciting that Commissioner Russell Tucker will be presenting soon. Next slide. So as Keith mentioned, this work is grounded in the Connecticut State Board Plan, and my colleague Kylie Freeman will talk a little bit about the alignment with Perkins, but to reiterate, this strategic priority really focuses on making sure that all students throughout Connecticut have multiple opportunities to look at career pathways and make sure that their schoolwork, that their experience in school, that their academic career is aligned to what their future goals and plans are. With that, there is the goal that Keith mentioned, that by 2028, the percentage of students earning an industry-recognized credential or IRC will increase. We are in the process now, and you'll see throughout this presentation that we are creating baseline data by which we'll be able to assess and also reach that goal. Kylie?
In coordination with the state board plan, the CSDE is currently working on the new Perkins State Plan, which will go into effect for the 26-27 school year. So with that being said, it really was a great opportunity to create that vertical alignment. So that way all our initiatives are supporting each other and create that pipeline with those opportunities for students.
Next slide. So agency collaboration is at the forefront of the work that we do, and particularly as it relates to this work. So this work began with the development of a cross-divisional team at SDE called the CSDE Career Workforce and Readiness Council. So more alphabet soup to come, the CWRC. With the CWRC, Career and Workforce Readiness Council, we developed a process guide for identifying our IRCs. And that really helped ground our thinking and planning around how do we build this out? How do we make it sustainable and really focus in and zero in on the folks that we want to service the most, which are our students and our adult learners. So our ultimate goal was to create this initial list of non-degree IRCs. In partnership with the Office of Workforce Strategy, and kudos to Grace Sue and her team, we also began to think about and learn from them that they were tasked with identifying credentials of value and defining what a credential of value is. We leaned heavily on Jack Porter and his team, so great to see Jack here, because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. A lot of states are already ahead of the curve in doing this work, and so we wanted to see what was happening across the US, across the nation, and then build on that, make some tweaks, make it Connecticut specific to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our students. So when we reached out to the National Governors Association, we were able to get that landscape analysis, which really helped ground the work that we began. What stemmed from all of this and these partnerships was the formation of the Credentialing Advisory Committee. And again, the alphabet soup, we had representation from a little bit of everyone, from the Department of Labor, our IHEs, our school districts, our Office of Higher Education, obviously OWS, and then most importantly, I think, is the Workforce Development Boards, making sure that industry was at the table, having a voice in what we were doing, and also informing the processes so that we were making sure that the work was grounded in the partnership with industry and business. So some of our goals were to create an IRC application, and Kylie will talk a little bit about that further in the presentation, but also to define IRCs as Connecticut defines them, looking at what the Department of Education at the national level uses as well, and then also looking to define the credentials of value. And ultimately, again, we will publish the approved list within, I would say, the coming days. Next slide. So we developed a timeline, a 6-phase timeline to make sure that we were on track, but making sure that we were really focused and zeroing in on expediting to the extent possible really good work. And so this work began with phase 1 in March of this year. As I mentioned, we conducted the national landscape analysis in partnership with NGA. We developed some glossary of terms for IRC, and we started really, really big. And then we had to scale down and really take this in bite-sized chunks to make sure that the work was quality work. And so we started off with defining IRCs and credential of value, and we also looked at developing the IRC application. In phase 2, which was over the summer, we finalized those definitions with the Credentialing Advisory Committee's input. We are about to publish the CSDE IRC registry, and we're also launching informational webinars, and we'll be providing technical assistance to our various stakeholders throughout the state. In phase 3, which is soon to launch, we are going to pilot our data collection process with school districts, and that initiative is being led by the Performance Office. We'll provide ongoing technical assistance, and as always with any good initiative, you have to assess and evaluate, and we will continuously do that to monitor and make the necessary adjustments. Next slide. Phase 4 of next year includes a review of the IRC application. So one of the things that we are about to do is to create a credentialing review committee, and that will be comprised of, again, multiple stakeholders, but also our business and industry partners, making sure that they are informing the process and making sure that there is continuity and consistency among all of the agencies. We will also assign the credential of value and the tiers, which is to identify which IRCs are foundational, which are essential. And so that work is ongoing throughout the spring of next year. In phase 5, we will continue our IRC data collection once applications are in, and we will publish the updated IRC registry with those credentials of values identified as well as the tiers. And finally, in phase 6, we will continue to reevaluate and update, and that will be the first time that the CSDE Performance Office will release school district IRC data between September 26th and March of 2027. Slide. So to give you an idea of what we, as the Credentialing Advisory Committee, along with the CWRC, came up with as definition for the IRC, I'll let you read it here, but it really identifies the certification and the validation of the students or the individual's knowledge, skills, and competencies. We also included examples, just 3 examples here in some of those major industry sectors: healthcare, manufacturing, and IT computer science. So CNA, we know, very popular, OSHA 10, the beginning of the manufacturing piece, and then CompTIA A+. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Kylie to talk a little bit about credentials of value and the work that she's done with DOL as well. Kylie?
Sure, thank you. So here's our definition that we landed on for credentials of value. And we really wanted to ensure that if something received this COV designation, that it was stackable, transferable, and then would help create pathways towards high wage occupations, because that really makes the opportunity, for that career advancement, to be chosen before somebody else, going up against you. And again, we provided examples for the governor priority areas with the healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. Next slide, please. So one of our partnerships historically has been with Department of Labor. It's very important work, especially to the Perkins world and the Perkins State Plan. We use the definitions of high skill, high wage, in demand in order to determine our fundable career clusters, meaning those are the clusters that are, that schools can use their actual Perkins allocation to support. So here are the definitions that we landed upon, thanks to the help of Patrick Flaherty and his team. And I feel this is important because, as we're going through industry recognized credentials and how LEAs are going to be leveraged this information, as a starting point, if they kind of focused on those priority areas first, it would kind of create, its own plan. Next slide. So the IRC application, this is one piece of the phases that Karen just spoke about. In this application, essentially a school district, an IHE, an accrediting organization, a business and industry partner, they can submit their credential to be reviewed, which will be reviewed by the Credentialing Review Committee, which we are currently working on establishing. So the process is going to be done annually. Once it's been vetted by our expanded stakeholder group, which includes the business and industry, we will then go ahead and publish that list again, just to make sure that all the new information is current and out there. Next slide, please. So really, one of the big whys, why do we need this IRC registry? It's been in the works for years and years. It's always been, a need in districts and higher ed. And really, this IRC registry is going to help strengthen the connection with education, workforce, and industry. And between the state board plan, what our new federal government is looking to do, everything seems to be working in tandem for once. We're not working against each other. We're all working towards the same goals. And really bridging that gap and creating that pipeline, that's really where the good work begins, and will continue to, to evolve, and will continue to create opportunities. Next slide, please. So as we said, I think it jumped back. There we go. Thank you. The IRC registry will be actually published rather soon, which is very exciting. And it's going to be very useful, and it's really the culmination of just the beginning of all the work that's to come. But it's really great work. Tracking the data, which is not only important for the state board goals, but is also embedded into the state plan. And really, as Karen had said, we're going to assess and evaluate. The best way to do that is by the data-driven decision making. So once we have that data before us, we can really see, where do we need to focus more on, what areas are really growing, what are the most common IRCs. That way we can really roll out some solid technical systems in the years to come. And then again, just to restate what Karen said, we will be doing informational webinars and providing technical assistance. Next slide, please. So here's our contact information and our email addresses. So if there's any questions that might bubble up outside of this time that's allotted, or you think of a question later, please reach out.
Thank you so much, Kylie and Karen and Keith, and thank you very much, Commissioner Russell Tucker, for the dedication and great work towards this. Does anybody have any questions? There's a lot of information there.
Kelly, I put one in the chat that has to do with the ETPL and how does this, I said in line, but how does it, interact with, or I don't know what the right word is, but
Yeah, that's a great question, Jill. And I think we're really excited about this work because it really is foundational to, I think, Workforce Pal. We're also working with a national group on credentials of value. Our state is working with on a team with Texas and New Jersey. There's 11 states all together. We'll be going to a convening. I think all of these pieces really they continue to amplify the importance of industry recognized credentials of value, how we define them. And I think it's really related to the EPTL list. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's the eligible training provider list. And it is the list that you're required to be on, to be approved to be an eligible training provider to receive WIOA funding. So I think the more we can kind of stack these things up on top of each other, the better scale we'll get, and the more ability to provide those additional stackable credentials. Commissioner Russell Tucker.
Thank you very much. And I just really want to do kudos to the team for the work that they're doing here, but really just thanking everyone for their partnership in this space. You saw the PowerPoint deck, a universe of opportunities. That was last year's theme in education. We've now transitioned to unlocking lifelong potential. And you can see what this really is and does for our young people in our K-12 system and moving them forward to higher education and the life of work. So I just really wanted to thank folks for this. And in about another few weeks or so, you'll be getting new information about our dual credit concurrent enrollment data from across the state, which I won't let anything go here because not my performance office will never forgive me. But all that to say, it's looking really good. So we're really excited to show for all of us, really, for kudos for the what we're seeing with the investments that we're making with more to come. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you again for your partnership and your leadership in this really important work. Okay, seeing no other questions. Again, thank you to the State Department of Education team. At this time, I'd like to transition over to Josh Nathan from Social Finance. They've been an amazing partner in this work, and we're excited to learn and share with you all the work that's done in the Career Accelerator. And you will see that there is a continuation of this theme of today's education piece, and the work that's being done on industry recognized credentials of value could potentially influence the types of programs that we can fund under the Career Accelerator as we scale that program up. Thank you, Josh.
Kelly, thank you so much for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here. Let me just make sure that everybody can see my slides before I proceed. Great, I see a few nods, so I'll jump right in. Well, as Kelly mentioned, my name is Josh Nathan. I'm a director of impact investments with a 501c3 nonprofit called Social Finance. We are based in Boston, so just over the border, and I'm very excited to share a bit of the work that we have done with the OWS team related to the Career Accelerator program. So first, a bit of background about what this program is and where it came from. To lower the barriers that low-income Connecticut residents face in accessing workforce upskilling, the Office of Workforce Strategy was instructed about 1.5 years ago to research and develop a Career Accelerator program using an initial pool of seed capital allocated from the Bond Commission in the amount of $5 million. And the goal of that $5 million initiative was to extend financial assistance to enable individuals to participate in and complete high-quality short-term training programs across the state. The design of this program began back in March of 2024 when OWS selected Social Finance through a competitive RFP as the consultant for the design of this program. And this program has since taken 5 stages of design work that Social Finance and OWS have undertaken together. That work is spotlighted on this slide, and it began with a landscape of existing state-sponsored programs, and then a real deep dive into, designing a program for Connecticut and for Connecticut's residents. That has included a financial model. It has included an evaluation framework for evaluating the program overall. It has included developing legal processes and legislative recommendations and additional financing opportunities later on. And I'll share a bit more about each of these steps in just a moment. The initial program design did focus on commercial truck driving. And we have, in following that initial guidance from the legislature, identified 3 high-quality in-state providers to support. And again, I'll share in a moment what it means to support this industry, what this program is all about. Thanks to stakeholder feedback and labor market analysis, we have identified many new providers in a number of additional industries. And so we are now focusing our efforts on industries as varied as nursing and mechatronics and aerotech and paramedic upskilling. And we have developed a few of those financing opportunities already. Social Finance has been a really eager participant here and just so excited to be supporting OWS in its work so far, and are eager to be a part of this as the fund moves from the design phase to the implementation phase, which we hope and are excited about coming up very soon. Briefly, before I dive into the design of this Career Accelerator program, who are we? Who is Social Finance, and what do we bring to the table? Social Finance is a national nonprofit and a registered investment advisor. We work with the public, private, and social sectors to create partnerships and investments that measurably improve lives. To hone in on that phrase and bring some meaning to it, a few different sort of elements of our work to spotlight. One is that our work involves mobilizing new capital, and we have mobilized to date about $400 million in new investments that are designed to help people in communities. Our workforce efforts in particular involve having launched to date many funds, and 11 of them are currently operating, and several of them mirror the work that is anticipated here in Connecticut. So this gives us a body of experience and evidence from which to draw as we help Connecticut build a bespoke program that really fits its needs, leveraging the learnings that we have from 11 other funds and growing. Our projects include workforce and education investments, which is sort of my side of our house, but there is a number of other elements of our business. One of them is that we have a impact advisory practice that has been a frequent a collaborator and partner with other Connecticut departments. So we are just so excited to know Connecticut very well and believe that Connecticut knows us very well. Our team of 120 is located across 5 offices, including, as I mentioned, Boston, where I personally am based. So a bit more about what exactly this effort looks like. I'd like to introduce, just as a philosophical framework, the idea of something that we call a pay it forward fund. This is a fund concept that the Career Accelerator program is most likely to follow, and I think it's helpful to understand it in the abstract, and then I'll go into some detail about what exactly it will look like in Connecticut through the Career Accelerator program. Pay it forward funds are funds that invest in sustainable, student-friendly financing methods, and they amplify the impact of public and philanthropic dollars by paying those dollars forward to future participants. So running through this model and starting with step one is that public sector funding, or in some cases philanthropic funding, provide upfront seed capital that creates a fund. That fund then uses its dollars and allows them to be deployed towards accessible financing that supports learner financing gaps via outcomes-based loans to individual learners who are enrolled in specific programs. And I'll say more about what an outcomes-based loan is in just a moment. Learners going through those programs using that accessible financing gain a valuable credential. It enables meaningful employment and economic mobility once they have gained that credential. Employers in step 4 hire graduated learners, gaining and retaining skilled workers and filling talent gaps. And then step 5, those employers or employees who have been upskilled repay some of the costs associated with their training to support future learners, and every dollar that is repaid recycles to support more learners in the future. So this is the sort of core of a pay it forward fund, that every dollar that is disbursed to support a population of learners can recycle and pay it forward to more learners, thereby stretching public dollars farther than under traditional approaches that might involve grant making, for example. What does the PIF model, the pay it forward fund model, accomplish? Well, a number of different things. One of them is it realigns risks and incentives by ensuring that a fund is paying upfront for training costs rather than, for example, individuals. And so that realignment of risk takes some of the risk off of individuals and puts them onto the fund. The PIF model also provides student-friendly financing with a real focus on living wage, high-demand jobs of the future. It allows us to fill labor shortages with local talent from local communities. And as I mentioned a moment ago, it allows us to recycle capital and thereby have greater impact than through a traditional mechanism. Now, I mentioned a really key piece of this is providing financing to individuals through something that we call an outcomes-based loan. And I want to illustrate exactly what that means really briefly, because I think it is really the core value proposition and the core premise that is so attractive about this model. Outcomes-based loans provide learner-friendly terms for participants in programs like the Career Accelerator program who are enrolled in short-term training. These are fundamentally student loans, right? So they are in fact loans, but they're loans with a number of really interesting and unique features. One of those features is that those loans bear 0% interest and no fees at all. So whatever a learner initially borrows for training or for support with living expenses, for example, that is precisely the amount they pay back, again, with no fees and with no additional interest. Additionally, outcomes-based loans are targeted towards supporting people who may have struggled with financial instruments historically. They do not require any minimum credit score at all. They do not require any cosigner at all. And they can be supplemented with grants and supportive services that may not be repaid at all, right? So that they may be accompanied by other supportive services around them. And an example I will give in a moment of a very specific application in Connecticut involves a very similar approach, where we provide both a loan to individuals for certain expenses and a grant to them to support other expenses. Another component of an outcomes-based loan is the idea that monthly payments should be fixed and very predictable for individuals. Typically, learners have a grace period after they've graduated from their program in which to pursue getting a job, securing that job. That can be 1 month, it can be longer. That is a design decision that we can make for any individual financing. And once repayments begin, learners make flat, predictable monthly payments for some number of months. That might be as many as 60 months or 5 years, depending on the size of the loan they've taken out. It could be shorter. But the goal is to keep the loan program extremely predictable so that learners know exactly what they are borrowing and what they're going to be obliged to repay. And then the final and perhaps the most important element of an outcomes-based loan is the idea that they are outcomes-based. What that means is that if individuals take out a loan to go through upskilling or training of some sort, and they graduate and they do earn above some income threshold that we set, and we're imagining in Connecticut that would probably be about $50,000, about a living wage for one individual with no dependents. If they earn above that amount, then they do repay the loan through those fixed monthly payments that I mentioned and at 0% interest. However, if they are not successful for any reason, if they cannot get a job where they're earning above that amount, so they get a job but they're not earning as much, or they can't get a job at all, maybe the labor market has shifted, maybe there's a family dynamic that has gotten in the way and they're unable to get a job earning $50,000 a year, that individual can defer all of their repayments for any month in which they are not earning that amount. Their repayment amount is $0 for that month, and they can re-defer in the future for as many months as that is true. So an individual could, after graduating through a program, not get the benefit that they have sought, not get a good job, and ultimately be able to defer their payments for the entirety of their loan term up until those maybe 60 months has elapsed, at which point the loan is forgiven. So the result is that some individuals may be able to defer all of their payments and never repay that loan. And that is a situation we would apply if those individuals have not been successful, right? Have not gotten what they're looking for. If they are successful, we would ask them to repay, but again, through fixed monthly payments, assessed at a 0% rate of interest. So these are unique tools that really bridge the gap between traditional student lending and scholarships to some extent. And they really fit the needs of Connecticut's Career Accelerator program because they create a context for which we can support learners in whether there is an upside to them and they get the job they're looking for, they get the salary they need, or that we need to protect them in the downside instance that they are not able to be successful and to get that job coming out of their training. Let me tell you a bit about how the Career Accelerator program has progressed, and I'll start with sort of our first principles as we began to build this program. I also appreciate that there are maybe some questions already popping into chat, although these may be from the prior presentation. So please do feel free to keep putting them there, and I will certainly get to them and hopefully have a moment at the end of the presentation to answer whatever questions you all may have. The Career Accelerator program's overarching goal was to design a program with outcomes-based financing that addressed barriers to upskilling and enables low-income participants to secure and retain quality jobs across many industries. I mentioned CDL, but of course we have expanded into other industries such as healthcare and advanced manufacturing. The principles that we decided on early on included the 5 that I've named here: a principle of access for people who have historically struggled to gain access to training, a principle of recyclability to make sure that dollars that go out the door have that potential to come back and recycle, a principle of additionality to make sure we are not interfering with any existing program, but rather complementing, sustaining, and extending existing programs, a principle of risk sharing to make sure we were removing some of the risk that individuals take on when they borrow in typical lending programs and put that risk somewhere else, and a principle of efficiency. We were really excited to get this going and get it off the ground and not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. One of the first steps our teams took once we had designed these first principles around the Career Accelerator program was to think a bit about the labor market in Connecticut and to try to identify what jobs are best positioned to be focuses for the Career Accelerator program, to be focuses where we could lend money to individuals who are pursuing upskilling in these jobs and know that that money is likely to get paid back and that those individuals are likely to get a really good job. What I'm spotlighting on this screen is across our 3 industries of focus, a number of jobs that really fit our criteria, that are really promising targets for the Career Accelerator program's financing objectives. You will see on this list jobs in the transportation industry, including truck driving, a number of jobs in advanced manufacturing, including welding and mechatronics and aerospace technicians and technologists, and a number of jobs in healthcare, including licensed nursing, radiologic technicians, and other jobs. And these jobs all share a number of important criteria. There are many openings across the state. These are jobs in very high demand. These jobs are generally growing. So these jobs are not reducing in need, they are growing in need. And the earnings that individuals earn when they come out of training for these jobs are generally pretty strong. People are generally coming out of training for these jobs and immediately earning at the 10th percentile a living wage, and then quickly progressing to earn even higher wages at the median. So these were, we felt, the right focuses for the Career Accelerator program. And we then pursued discussions with training providers across the state to understand, could we provide financing that would enable upskilling in these jobs and in these industries? What we've come to propose is focusing on several different programs across these three industries using that $5 million allocation. Again, those three industries are transportation, advanced manufacturing, and healthcare. And in transportation, we have fully designed with 3 selected training providers a CDL upskilling program that I'll share more about in a moment that would leverage some of those $5 million towards training new truck drivers across the state of Connecticut. We've also fully designed with Connecticut State the LPN training program focused on the prospective nurses going through CT State's programs who are aspiring to become LPNs and serve the state in that manner. We are excited about that fully designed program that is also ready to launch using the $5 million out of the Career Accelerator program. And then we are in more early stage conversations with programs in several other fields. Those fields include the paramedic training program opportunity spotlighted on the bottom left, and opportunities in advanced manufacturing, including a Bristol Tech Ed Center airframe mechanic training program that looks promising and could be a really good target for these funds, and a mechatronics training program. And we're still looking at different programs across the state to identify the right one that would fit this program and this funding opportunity. I want to spotlight, to sort of tie the pieces together, exactly what we propose doing in support of that CDL training program. But I wanted to first share that there are many other programs we're looking at. And so what I'm about to spotlight is just one example of how we sort of bring the pieces together and support CDL training using this pay it forward fund structure and the unique idea of an outcomes-based loan. Here, what I've depicted, and I know the slide is a bit wordy, so I'll walk through it, and this is really the crux of our presentation today, are the illustrative anticipated terms for CDL financing under the Career Accelerator program. First, what we would do is, from that $5 million capital pool, we would allocate about $1 million that would be focused specifically on upskilling for CDL drivers. That amount could go up, it could go down, but that's sort of an initial guess as to what CDL truck driving could absorb right now for this tool. The sectoral focus would be commercial truck driving programs at 3 vetted recommended training programs that have long histories of partnership with OWS and with the workforce boards, and that currently operate within Connecticut. There are 2 financing gaps that we identified when we looked at these truck driving programs. The first financing gap is that many learners do not have access to any form of funding to cover their tuition costs, which can be substantial and prohibitive. So we propose that the Career Accelerator program would provide funding that would cover the full cost of attendance for truck driving programs using a 0% interest outcomes-based loan. Just like I described earlier, a loan at 0% interest that only gets repaid if, when individuals graduate, they actually get a job earning above a designated minimum income threshold. We also spotlighted an additional challenge, which is that many learners struggle to complete their training because they struggle to reduce their working hours. And that is because folks have costs that do not stop even if you're in training. These costs would include costs like childcare and rents and transportation. I see some nodding. I know that these are realities for all of us, whether we are in training or at work or none of the above. And so we propose that the Career Accelerator program would additionally provide learners with an additional $1,000 per month in a living expense stipend that does not get repaid. So learners essentially get 2 streams of value out of the Career Accelerator program if they're enrolled in one of these programs. One is a loan for tuition, and the other is a grant, a non-repayable stipend to cover living expenses while they are doing that training. There are a number of criteria we wanted to apply to make sure we were supporting folks who are most in need of financing. Those criteria include that we want to make sure we are supporting people who have the authorization to work in the US and who are also residents of the state of Connecticut. We want to make sure that we are lending solely to people who are either 18 years of age or emancipated minors. They must be enrolled in one of the eligible programs that we have identified and vetted. They must have no history of or active bankruptcy or active collections greater than $10,000, excluding medical and education debt. So this is a fairly permissive obligation, but the expectation is simply that we don't want to burden somebody with more debt if they have a really strong demonstrated history of really struggling with debt that they have already historically taken on. And we have a preference for supporting learners from a number of different high needs backgrounds. And this is a preference that ultimately the CDL training providers would use in identifying those students best positioned to take on this financing support. What would the financing look like? Eligible learners would enroll in vetted programs and they would apply for a 0% interest loan from a third-party licensed originator operating in the state. That originator would issue the loan to learners and would disperse half of the tuition costs to the training provider at the start of training. Additionally, the fund would disperse that $1,000 per month living expense stipend to training providers, which would disperse those stipends to learners over time as those learners remain enrolled in the program. Once learners graduate, if they are placed above the minimum income threshold that we designate, the fund would remit the remaining 50% of tuition to the training provider. This is an exciting and important detail here that we feel really strongly about. We are only paying the providers 50% of tuition up front. We are withholding tuition until they actually demonstrate that they can get students trained up and placed in jobs. And so this means that providers now have some skin in the game as well. Ultimately, learners who earn above that minimum income threshold would repay their loans to a third-party licensed servicer, which would remit all amounts minus any fees to the fund, and the fund would recycle capital to support future learners. So you can see how this bespoke, unique process fits with that general idea of a recycling loan fund where money goes out the door, supports individuals, and if it gets repaid, can go out the door again to support the next generation of individuals. We project that with this exact sort of financing, we would be able to enroll between 400 and 500 learners at 3 providers over 2 years, and that given our guesses as to what we think graduation and placement and repayment compliance rates would be, we would bet that we can recycle capital between 1.4 and 1.6 times. So that means every dollar that goes out the door, we are getting back and are able to put back out the door an additional 40 to 60 cents on each of those dollars. And so that represents the amount of recyclability that we can do, the value that this fund creates above and beyond a system where we are granting money out and not expecting that any repayments will return. I'll wrap up my presentation and then in a moment open it up for questions by just sharing kind of what comes next. So Social Finance and OWS have been proud to co-develop this program over about 1.5 years, and we are now on the precipice of OWS being able to secure capital and launch it. We're very excited about that step. The next step to launching the Career Accelerator program is selecting a fund administrator, fund manager. So pre-launch, that selection we expect will happen through an RFP that I know OWS is thinking about and hard at work on. There are several other important steps, including establishing fund governance and oversight, finalizing the selection of partners, and negotiating and signing the contracts that will bind these partnerships together and enable them to take place. Post-launch, a number of different steps can take place, including enabling learners to receive funding, dispersing capital pursuant to any negotiated agreement, advertising and publicizing these opportunities, particularly through the workforce boards, which have been such valuable partners to us in this design work, measuring and reporting on fund performance, establishing appropriate operating and governance oversight, and establishing new contracts with new providers. We have an ambition that this will serve not just CDL, but many other programs in the future, including some we have developed, such as in LPN upskilling, and some we haven't developed, such as in mechatronics. And those programs can be launched in future stages once we have launched the initial programs. This does not all need to launch at once. It can launch sequentially and over time. That culminates what I wanted to share with everybody today. I'll take down the screen share for a moment, though. Of course, I'm happy to return to a slide if helpful, and would welcome any questions that folks have to share, either verbally or by chat.
Josh, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really informative. I think there's a couple of questions in the chat. Um, Rich Jacob from Yale asked, since you proposed to withhold 50% of tuition up front, will providers be required to provide the same curriculum as the program offered to students with traditional financing, and how will that be overseen?
Yeah, Rich, thank you for your question. We are excited about this nuance, and this is something that we have been successful at applying, particularly for non-community college, non-sort of state-connected programs in fields like truck driving. From the program standpoint, the financing that we are offering is an incredibly valuable tool for them to recruit more students and retain those students in training. And so from their standpoint, this represents a real win to have a partner like OWS saying, hey, we'll advance to you 50%. And if you're successful and do exactly what you say, we'll give you the other 50%. And you can in turn go out and tell your students that this is such an exciting new way that they can support their training should they be eligible. We will expect that providers provide precisely the same curriculum as in the program offered to students who might be financing their own way through it, or paying their way through it. And one very clear way we would oversee that is by watching the outcomes, right? In those programs who do not perform, do not ensure that their truck driving students receive a CDL and ultimately graduate, will be deprived of the opportunity to earn that remaining 50% of tuition dollars. And so that would be a problem for them that they are now incentivized not to do. There would also be consistent oversight, monitoring, and governance that the fund would continue to do to make sure that they are delivering what they promise. And at any time, if there are concerns about that, the fund would reserve the right to simply shut off the lever of lending to the students of that program and could divert that money to a different program, either in truck driving or a completely different program altogether. So there's a lot of ability to sort of watch as lending dollars go out the door and stop those dollars from going out the door if there are any problems that we perceive with the quality of training.
Thank you, Josh. Another question here is, loans create debt, which can hinder economic mobility. What's the likelihood of this loan program being waived if someone is similar to those who may be experiencing barriers?
Yeah. Well, Christine, I think I might start by saying we would hope that any student who is able to get access to free dollars, to dollars they don't have to repay, is getting access to those dollars first. We think that the financing programs we create should be complementary to existing programs and might be thought of as sort of a last dollar program. And so that means that a student who is able to access funding through WIOA or Pell for an LPN program or something like that, that those students should take on those dollars first and only turn to this fund if they are not able to get access to those dollars. However, the reality is that those funds are unfortunately limited and they are sometimes slow to get dispersed. And in the case of Pell, would not generally apply for truck driving programs. So in that instance, OWS and the state legislature, in its wisdom, thought, well, hey, is there a way that we can make our small pot of money grow more, but still protect students, not give anybody a loan that they will be burdened by and unable to pay back? And that is where this program sort of fits that need by providing students with a very unique type of loan that is really protective because there's no interest, because students don't have to pay it back if they don't get the benefit of what their training was there for. And the result is that OWS is able to stretch its dollars further. As I mentioned for that CDL program, we believe that we're able to recycle upwards of 40 to 60 cents on every dollar that goes out the door. That is 40 to 60% more students, right, in a way that otherwise couldn't have gotten any money at all because the pot would have dried up by that point. And so that is the sort of trade-off at play here. But I think to the extent that somebody is experiencing severe barriers and has access to free money, I would never want to stand in the way of them using those dollars before they turn to these dollars and this program.
Thanks for that. Another question. You're getting a lot of good questions here, Josh.
Wonderful.
Is graduate job retention / turnover one of the criteria for the target jobs, and will this be evaluated?
So is retention in jobs for some number of years a key criteria? Is that the sort of core question?
I think so. Michael, if you want to jump on and clarify your question.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As part of what makes a job suitable for this program or qualify for this program, are you looking at retention in the jobs over a period of time after graduation? Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, thank you for the question, and it's really nice to see you again after some number of months. So we certainly are going to watch to see what retention looks like. And one of the key ways we will do that is by watching the incoming streams of repayments that students will be making on their loan, right? So if a student graduates and they get a good job earning, say, $50,000 a year as a truck driver, $45,000 a year as a truck driver, they will be repaying their loan dollars back over a series of as many as 5 years. And we will be watching with those repayments to see, are they able to consistently repay? Do they need to request a deferment because they now can't repay because they've lost their job? Are they sticking with the job, and is their income growing, right? So there's a way in which the monitoring and evaluation of the program's social outcomes in terms of retention kind of operate hand in hand with the financial outcomes, which is, are we seeing money coming back in the door? We do have some other proposed programs that I didn't spotlight today, where we are trying to speak with employers to see whether they would be interested in paying back on behalf of the employees whom they hire. And in that instance, a really interesting premise would be those employers would presumably only pay back if the employee remains employed, if they do not voluntarily leave their job. And so there's another interesting add-on there where if an employer is involved, we can actually build this additional kind of retention quality in so that that employer is creating a benefit for that worker to stay at the job because they are giving them a little bit more money to cover their loan costs. By the way, those loan costs may be as little as $100 per month. So we're not talking about a huge payment. It's a lot if you're not earning much, but it's not a huge payment. And it may be something that employers can contribute to or fully cover depending on the industry. And I think that actually may speak to another question I saw, Jill, which is this question about annual income and kind of how this all works. So maybe just to tackle that. And then Anthony, I saw another great question from you. Jill, the way we do this is twofold. One of them is that we do ask individual borrowers to report their incomes back over time so that we can gather that information. We want to know, and it's an important part of the reporting that we would want to do over the long term for this program, just as we would want to know, to Michael's question, is that individual still employed and have they been retained at the job that they initially started at? So one answer is gathering information directly from learners themselves. And we also will ask their program, hey, what are starting salaries in this field? If we had somebody from one of the truck driving academies on this call, I think they would quickly say, we know exactly what people make in this industry. We know what these employers can pay. The same is true for CT State when we talk to them about their LPN program. They know what people coming out of the program make over at least the first few years. The other detail, Jill, in terms of how is this sort of deferment applied? How do we know that somebody is paying or earns enough to pay or is not earning enough to pay? Is that we choose to use sort of an opt-in, opt-out model where we expect that everybody will be able to repay, and we ask that they call a licensed servicer who is used to receiving these calls all day long, or send an email that simply says, I am not earning enough money, I am not in a position to repay. If they do that, they will be put in deferment. And again, they can re-request that, they can re-up that deferment over and over again over time. Our servicers will, in some instances, ask for a bit of proof, and that may involve sending a pay stub that proves that that individual is making less than, say, $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Of course, it's a little hard to prove that you are making zero. There isn't a pay stub to send, but there may be public benefits documents that could be sent. We know that there is a slight risk that individuals may abuse the system and may sort of try to say, I'm not earning anything, when in fact they are. And that is sort of the moral hazard encompassed in this program. That is a risk we are, to some extent, willing to take to be able to create what is otherwise a really beneficial program to individual students. Jill, I hope I tackled that question.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And then Anthony, this is a great question. Do we want to adjust the monthly payment in some way to tailor it to graduate income? So first, our goal was to design a program where we were tailoring repayments such that they generally would fit individuals' earnings. We do not want to finance programs where students come out of the program and they're only earning, say, $30,000 a year. because that person would not be able to repay this loan. So we de facto eliminate programs that are not positioning their graduates to be plausibly able to repay their loans. So that's sort of the first detail. The second is that there are a lot of ways we could tailor repayments. One of them that we have talked about with the OWS team is that some individuals may earn the same amounts as other individuals, but their life circumstance makes it much harder for them to access those dollars and repay them. For example, a person with 2 dependents needs to earn a lot more money in order to really have a living wage to support those dependents than an individual who has no dependents. And so that would suggest we might want to think about an income threshold that changes depending on the number of dependents you have, such that you repay at $40,000 a year if you have no dependents. But if you have a dependent, maybe you pay at 50, only if you earn 50. And if you have 2 dependents, maybe you only repay if you earn 60. So you can imagine that sort of stepwise scale. The challenge here, and I'll actually give an incredibly specific example. We've implemented that exact program in New Jersey, where we currently have a $25 million Pay It Forward Fund program, primarily focused on upskilling LPNs, nursing. And Anthony, that program is going really well. It is now, it has raised up to $25 million. It is supporting many students. It's been in operation for 3 years. And this program is a key feature. The challenge, though, is that we have a lot of individuals who cannot quite figure out exactly whether they owe money or they don't, because the calculation is not quite so simple as 1 child equals, $40,000 if I have 1 child, 50,000 if I have 2. It is inevitably a bit more complicated than that, and it changes from year to year. And so we worry about creating a lending program where borrowers are not always sure if they owe money or not. That is sort of the grounds for an unstable program. And so our recommendation here is to try to keep more stability and say, look, we just want to keep this clean and clear for everybody. We want to make it $100 a month that you repay so that you don't have to forget how much. You are always on the hook for it. The terms are simple. And we find one of the hardest parts with this sort of innovative a program is that the more innovative we make it, the more clever we try to be, the more individuals struggle with understanding the details, though we have tried to be so thoughtful and bespoke. But I will end this response by saying that Grace and Kelly and I spent hours and hours on the phone talking about this, so it is such an interesting topic, and I don't think the door is closed on it by any means. It is just that our recommendation is that simple often is better in these sorts of programs.
Thanks so much, Josh, and I really give you and Grace a ton of credit for working on this. Grace led this initiative with OWS, and when we looked at this opportunity, we are trying to understand where are gaps in funding, that there just isn't funding for certain people to be able to get access to job training programs. And so this was kind of our approach to those who may not be eligible for Pell or WIOA but still have a need and can't pay back the loan or pay the tuition up front. And this is a way that we can support those folks. So we're excited that the legislature, provided $5 million for the pilot, and would love to get to a point where we're up, like with New Jersey, at 25 million in the bucket. And the more money that we have in the bucket, the more recyclability that we have, and the longer we can of a tail that we have to support more folks moving into this. The other comment, Tony, that you had made about employer paying the model, like we love that model. The governor has a tax credit for employers who repay student loans for tuition. And so it would be great for us to maybe add, this accelerator program for a tax credit for employers to repay as another added incentive for them to do that. So that's a really great thought. Is there any other questions? Josh, you got lots of hearts and stars and thumbs up for this work. It is really exciting. And we're really happy to have been able to partner with you and have your deep thought process on all of this. And you're right, it's a debate as to where you draw those lines, and you have to kind of find the sweet spot. And we'll learn a lot with the funding that we have and have the ability to be able to iterate on this program and add more programs to it. I know, Tim, thanks for jumping in on the career schools, because a lot of them have really amazing programs, and we're working on that sweet spot of how much does it cost, how long does it take, what is the outcome, and what is the recyclability? Because we could spend $5 million really fast and then have to wait many, many years to determine if we are able to support additional folks depending on the payback rate. So lots of moving parts. Awesome. Okay, well, that concludes our meeting. Usually we're rushing and down towards the end zone here, and I'm happy to say that we're sliding in right under our time limit. I just wanted to share with all of you with a reminder that our next meeting is planned to be in person on December 11th. We're still working on a location, but hoping that it'll be something that's fairly central for everyone. As a reminder, last year we asked all of you whether you wanted more in-person meetings versus virtual meetings, and the overwhelming response was more in-person meetings, and the option of every other meeting or 2 meetings a year in person is where we all landed on. So we're really excited about that. We're also really thinking about Governor's Workforce Council retreat, so that we can really engage more of you and your expertise in the work that we're doing regarding the implementation of the state plan. You are also very helpful and informative and insightful in how we put the plan together. And the implementation of that plan also requires your deep thought and expertise. So we will be doing more thinking about how we can really engage you all in a meaningful way and make your service on this really important council really worth the time that you put in. And we so greatly appreciate every one of you being here regularly. Our next regional sector partnership convening is on January 8th. We again are still working on a location for that. And we're really looking forward to our 5th annual Workforce Summit coming up this April, date to be determined, but we'll be sharing all of that out with you very quickly. And we also have done a lot of updates to our website, more to come. But if you have not visited the Office of Workforce Strategy website, there's a lot of great information up there for you in a new layout, and would love to get your feedback and any ideas that you may have. You can share with us at the gwc@ct.gov email, or give any one of us a call or shoot us an email. So thank you again so much for all of your attention and your participation today. Giving you back 6 minutes of your late afternoon, and thank you again.